So with that, I would like to introduce myself because I'm going to be doing a little fireside chat with our friend Mr. Morgan from Simulmedia. Come on up, Dave. I don't know if everybody in the room knows Dave, but he is the CEO and founder of Simulmedia, which is an advanced television company. We're going to start to talk a little bit about that space with our whatever one you like. Yep. And you know, interestingly, Dave came up in the digital industry, started an amazing targeting company that I used to read about when I was a TV buyer at Zenith, and I was just fascinated. He used to write a lot. Probably you still write a lot. I just don't read anymore. But and he's now applying that. He was very successful in that space, and he's now applying that knowledge and the digital principles to the television space. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. Hello, Dave.
Good morning, Chris.
Do you want to, before we start, talk a little bit about, you know, sort of what brought you from where you were to, you like that? Yep, that's going to be there the whole time.
Nice touch.
Yeah. So maybe everyone will feel like it's the holidays. Give us a sense of, you know, how you got to this point, how Simulmedia sort of became an idea of yours and how you made it real.
Sure. So I started in online advertising more than 20 years ago, pre-web. So I had a lot of time on the digital side, and 5 years ago we started Simulmedia with a belief that the future of digital marketing was going to happen more inside the television world than outside the television world. And that may be a bit of a contrarian view, and certainly a contrarian view for a digital person. But it was based on the belief that there was a really big opportunity for television to become like the web before the web could become like television. And largely because of the statistics that you showed up there, which is television doesn't have a usage problem. I mean, fundamentally, average American spends 35 hours a week watching television. Newspapers had a usage problem, magazines had a usage problem, Yellow Pages had a usage problem, but not TV. And the basic premise of Simulmedia was to bring web-like ad targeting to television at scale. And so we're 5 years old, and what we've done is assembled a database, essentially, you can see it, a platform, where we have the daily second-by-second viewing of about 60 million Americans. So it's trying to bring the measurability of the web. We've combined that with every ad they see. We've combined that with credit card transaction data on more than 80% of Americans so that we could start understanding not just what ads they see, but what purchases they make. And then because the industry has never lacked for planning tools, but it's lacked for true activation at the spot level with that data, we've stitched it together with partnerships with 9 of the 10 largest distributors of television programming, the MVPDs, multi-channel video programming distributors, the cable companies.
Could you say that again 3 times fast?
Yeah. Had to like...
Multi-channel video provider, sorry.
Yeah, and you've lived in this world for years. And
well, they were called MSOs before.
Yeah, we did call them MSOs in the old days. So we have all but one, and actually that one's being bought. So basically every distributor in America, and we have partnerships with 71 of the 90 largest cable networks, which means we now have a network where we can vend 75% of all TV viewing. And the thesis behind it is exactly what you showed, which is while TV usage has been strong, fragmentation has really hurt the campaign delivery. And the fact that, like you did, most in TV has sort of used primetime broadcast and TV as one and the same for a long time. And you don't very much because you've been way ahead of that game. But primetime broadcast has been pummeled for 15 years. But the TV industry had a hard time really accessing all of TV. How do you get to the light TV viewers, not just outside of the home? How do you get to them in TV where they're watching 25 hours a week?
Right. I think I'd really like, maybe this crowd would like to understand, how do you take these principles that are very high-minded, and you've got, you've got significant data sets here. How do you make it work in a medium that is, because you're dealing with a lot of local cable providers and satellite providers. Tell us a little bit about how it works from RFP from an advertiser to literally, purchasing the inventory, actually to creating the data run, identifying where you need to place that advertising, and how do you make it work with thousands of potential media partners across the country?
So it's never easy, but I'll give an example. So a couple months ago, one of the large airlines invited us in with about 10 different TV companies to pre-RFP, to basically say that they wanted to conquest flyers on another airline. And they wanted to have data to understand those behaviors. They wanted to target them in television, where the bulk of their money was spent. And then they wanted to have reporting on the back end to show how well we had done, everyone had done. And we loved it because that was sort of speaking our language. And their airlines care a lot about environment, but they want to complement it with audience-based. So we went in to have an agency meeting after that, and what happens in 95% of these kinds of meetings, we present our capabilities. They're excited because they matched up with what they wanted. And then they said, oh, by the way, but you're going to have to post it on a sex age demo, not on your behavioral target. I'm like, well, no, we were in that meeting last week with you. Like that client said, your client said, do you want it on this target? Yeah, but you're the only one of the 11 that actually will post and sell on that basis. So we can't really create another row on the spreadsheet if you're the only one there. So we want you to like do your best stuff, but you're going to post or sell on the sex age demo because that's how we're going to do the campaign.
So this was, they weren't saying we just want to know the composition. They were saying you need to deliver on a goal of age, sex,
yeah,
demo?
they wanted to deliver on a goal, and we were going to sell on that basis, guarantee it. That's
so after this, could you tell me that airline and the agency?
Yeah,
and
yeah, we'll be talking about that.
An introduction.
Yeah,
yeah. Okay.
So then there's a bunch of like back and forth with the agency client, and then at some point like, okay, we're going to go forward on the campaign. Typically what we do, we're complementing an environmental schedule. So we'll have a sense of maybe where that's going to go. We'll come in at some portion of the budget. Our system will try to predict at the time when, so we'll input that into our system with those behaviors, match it against credit card transaction data to know what people have made purchases for this airline. Could be web data that we've linked to our 60 million panel. Now we've also integrated into that the entire Nielsen national panel box by box with Nielsen's help, which means our 60 million panel actually projects to all 290 million people in America. So we come up with a list. Now, you can't actually activate a list in TV of people because you can't change the ad on every box. You can in a few systems, Cablevision, some of the satellites you can change it, but it's still a cumbersome process. So we then model that against all of the 120,000 spots every single day that occur, let's say during the flighting of this campaign. And our system will output and say, where do these people index the highest? Let's say we want to get an index of 150 or better or 200 or better. And you come up with lists of thousands and thousands of spots. Now, 2/3 of all spots on TV are less than a 0.5 rating and are used exclusively for packaging or DR, direct response. So we try to go into there because we know they're underappreciated. And we know that you need to have a lot of automated systems to pull them together. So we'll pull that list, we'll pull the most optimal ones. We'll then query the 71 national programmers. We'll then query all of our local operators. And we'll say, how much of this list do you have available on these flight dates when our system projects we'll have these people there? We'll negotiate back and forth as to how many of them they'll deliver on the relative thing. We'll pull it together. Maybe the schedule will have 60 GRPs a week at a 150 index with a expected target of whatever that is. We'll use the normal trafficking. And as you and I talked about last night, it's exciting when everyone's expecting TV to become like automated and super duper programmatic.
Yeah, we are expecting
yeah.
that.
And I was talking to Kris last night about how one of our largest TV network partners, one of the largest sellers of television network advertising, let us know that as of Monday, for the very first time, they will accept trafficking orders on a medium other than fax. You can actually email them an instruction. So we have to build systems which convert.
We're taking steps forward, people.
So anybody that thinks you're
breaking down the barriers.
So you obviously have to build these systems that actually take your digital instruction, convert them to fax, and take faxes and convert them to digital.
Okay, so, all right, let me interrupt you because I fell asleep for a minute in the middle of that. No. Is everybody following Dave? So you've compiled a bunch of data sets, you've married them to TV viewing behavior, you create a list of program slots that that you think will over-index in a core audience for that particular customer, and then you go out and you place advertising in those slots with hundreds of local cable avails throughout the country.
Thousands of local and national.
And
More
then
than half of our
inventory is national. And then you send
3,500
fax? is?
Well, the systems have to. Like, yeah, those pieces have to be fully automated. So this is where the TV needs automation, is in the plumbing. So you've got things that, you know, replicate faxes back and forth and pull it. In the end, what really matters and what happens is you deliver a campaign where, let's say for 15% of the budget, you end up contributing 50% of the unique reach, and you do it at half of the price of the regular schedule. And you're able to tie it to actual visits to the website for the airline or transactions.
That's pretty interesting stuff. Is this, I think one of the things I regularly hear about this underutilized inventory space is that clients are kind of concerned about, you know, running in cheap areas or inappropriate content.
Exactly,
Talk about
in cheap. No, I mean, I think that's, I mean, you know, the nice thing about TV is it doesn't have the porn problem and the bot problem of the web. Today, the reason that primetime doesn't work and that Friday and Saturday night's primetime is terrible is because they're like watching Military Channel or History Channel or Duck Dynasty reruns or BBC Americas or watching English Premier League. So, you know, the fact that it's in small spots doesn't make it bad spots, but TV historically has had a aversion to small spots because it was not efficient to go get them, and because, most importantly, you didn't have a number for it. I mean, the standard error rate on the Nielsen panel for a 0.5 spot is in Albuquerque is 118% error rate. So it's more wrong than right. So I think the way to think about it is you couldn't have, A, you didn't have a system to find the needles in the haystack. B, you couldn't operationally aggregate them and deliver them by the ton, but now you can. And because people have fragmented into the kinds of things they like and want, you actually can target much better than you used to be, because you can only pick those where sort of birds of a feather have flocked to that are interested in these things.
So what does, now you're talking to an advertiser, you're talking to an agency leader, what do these guys have to buy into? What do they have to accept that is different from their traditional way of doing business in TV? Like, what hump do they have to get over to immediately embrace this and go, you know what, this is really good stuff, I should be doing more of this?
Well, the biggest problem is, how do you make them smarter without making them feel and look dumb? Because
there are some clients in the audience,
yeah,
by the way. Just
yeah, it's the
you guys are all smart. The ones that
yeah,
are here,
yeah.
you're smart.
I mean, the
The ones in LA, not so smart.
The challenge is, when you get down and look at the spot level on how TV campaigns have been running for the last 5 or 7 years, you're confronted by how much wasted frequency there is, how much pricing was paid for being able to access a few spots, how much of the bulk campaign was packaging, and how much it's dropped with fragmentation. And the first reaction is to start blaming somebody. And there aren't many people, I mean, you've been out in front of this for a while. I mean, you read my stuff before because I was writing about digital. Rather than writing about TV, you know a lot more than I do.
I don't have to read your stuff. I am all-knowing in television.
Exactly. So that's hard for someone, and you have to walk them through, look, the measurement wasn't available before. The systems to aggregate the inventory weren't available before. And then the big issue is, how do you get over the religious issue about content? Like, it's only content, isn't it? That's all that TV is about, and you have to explain, no, it's actually about audience too. And then it's interesting, the final issue.
So you basically have to move them from the left-hand side of the screen, the environment, to audience.
Right.
And that's what they have to embrace then.
Exactly.
Is that they have to be okay with reaching the audience across thousands of partners.
Yeah, and then,
or hundreds.
And then if you get them, and they're really being frank and honest with you, then they say, but what do I tell the networks? Like, these have been my friends. Like, I've built my career with them for 20 years, and I see Barry Fry chuckling since he worked in that world. It's like, they've been my friends. Like, I vacation with them. I mean, and that's not a trivial issue. Like, their families have grown up together. They've like gone to junior hockey together.
We're gonna, like, you're talking about me, but I'm gonna just pretend you're talking about other buyers.
Well, that's what I mean. It's that hard. It's that hard to say, I'm gonna give the tough love to my friends and tell them they got to get on the program too. But that doesn't exist that way in online. It didn't historically, where it's very empirical.
All right, so now it's been, you said 5 years, right?
Yes.
And for the first 2 years, everybody was, it seems like, you know, where you're coming from is, it sounds like people were not necessarily open at the beginning to hearing that the current way of doing TV is not exactly perfect. right? Where are you in that process? It's 5 years later. How many kinds of clients are you doing business with? How many agency groups are you doing business with?
So we work with, right now, I think so far this year, 60 different clients of campaigns that have been scheduled or running. That represents probably, I mean, when you think of agency groups, there's, you know, virtually every holding company, we're someone working with someone in one of the holding companies. We do very well with more like the strong regional mid-size agencies because they see what we do as a chance to gain scale and compete. Mm-hmm. And then there's a certain number of clients who are not working with agencies and have chosen to put some of that to us directly. We prefer to work with the agency because you need someone to manage the account and go more broadly. That probably, the category we started in was helping TV networks drive tune-in, and we did that because we could close the loop. We also did that, and this is like the funnest part of this, is the one group of advertisers that could really give a crap about environment are TV networks. Because they're just want audiences. They're like, they don't say, oh no, only be in prime time or not be overnight or not be early morning. They're just like, no, I have a rating. I want a rating, and you get me the best rating possible. Environment is what our salespeople sell, you know, but we're marketers that are being held accountable for a rating every day. So we work with virtually every major TV network group in America. We actually sell for many of them on a cost per converted viewer basis. We sell performance. Mm-hmm. We say, here's how much a half rating point against this demo will cost you.
What's your success rate on that?
We haven't missed a benchmark yet.
That's impressive. What percentage of your business is represented by the tune-in category?
Last year it was about 50%. So far this quarter it's about 30% because the general market's catching up. Here's why I'm never going back to online until TV is just all online. And is that the power of the TV spot, the well-placed TV spot, is off the charts. It's got at least 2 decimal points on any web placement I've seen, including a web video placement, and we've tracked them.
What does that mean? Explain that.
It means that if you look at a post-campaign conversion 2 days later, and you're looking at a quick service restaurant, you actually can track it to a percentage point or 2 lift at a local store level from about 20% of the spots that ran. 80% of the spots that were packaging or other things or hit at the wrong person, they're not contributing much. But the 20% that hits, you're looking at multiple percentage rates. You're looking at, you know, that can be on any given week. That can be $50 million worth of market share. That's why McDonald's and State Farm and General Motors and Miller Coors stay in TV heavy because they know it sells stuff. No one's ever de-averaged TV to say, hey, wait a minute, let's start looking at the half that is truly wasted, cut it out. Let's understand what part is part of an integration or content or environment that we don't expect to pull in store sales today, but it's going to pull the brand for 5 years. And let's look at that. And that's changing. And so for us, the categories that are growing the most, financial services, mobile telco, quick service restaurants, casual fine dining, because there is a movable purchase that TV impacts on a daily basis.
So you can see results fast.
And we see results. And when you have credit card data, people have had planning data where you can look like 2 months about what happened 2 months ago. But when you start looking at it every day, I mean, I heard a talk from the CEO of McDonald's recently, and someone asked him, well, you're going to go heavy in social. He said, absolutely. Like, heavy in social. And he said, heavy in digital. He said, yes. And I guess you're going to go lighter on TV. And he said, no. We're actually going to take TV spend up 2 points over the next years because he said there's no better place to present the environment of the restaurant. And he said, we know it pulls our store sales. But we're going to get ROI accountable on that.
Mm-hmm. So tell me about, you've been able to close the loop on the tune-in category because you got the set-top box data right there. How are you getting into the space of closing the loop on other categories? Yeah,
we will, in this coming quarter, we're going to run 4 pilots where we're going to close the loop first on a weekly basis for 2 major retail and a casual fine dining and a mobile telco.
How do you separate that from all the noise that the rest of their television schedule is creating?
So what we do is we're basically going to create an A-B split. So today most people use a media mix model which doesn't actually let you isolate out a control because we didn't have large single source panels. But we have 60 million people, and and in our transaction panel of 8 million. So we're gonna isolate out those that got the ads and those that didn't.
Within your footprint?
Well, all.
Oh, all.
Against all of America.
Okay.
All of America. Those that got the ads, those that didn't. And we'll normalize that to make sure we just haven't over-isolated on potential purchasers. We do that in TuneIn to make sure we haven't over-isolated on likely viewers. I mean, the good news is TV's performance is off the charts in driving sales, but it's not all the same. And so we expect by the end of the year that we'll not only sort of post on it, just report on it, we'll actually start guaranteeing on it.
Okay, so you confused me a little bit in there, and I will do this because maybe some of you guys got confused, or maybe I'm the only one, but I get to ask the questions. So when I asked you how you separated from the noise of the bigger television schedule, what you just explained sounded to me like you're measuring the effectiveness of TV overall. How are you measuring the effectiveness of the Simulmedia piece of the TV?
So what we do is we have every single ad that runs in America in our system every day.
Okay.
So we know every ad they got. So we bring 125,000 ads into the system every single day, and we stitch it against every household in America. And it's balanced with Nielsen, so we know it's against the standard. So when we run our ad for this quick service restaurant, we know exactly what ads we ran. We know what ads ran on a national broadcast schedule, national cable schedule, local broadcast.
You can find homes where you just ran?
Yeah, we can find homes where we just ran, but we can also isolate the differences.
Okay, got it.
So we can isolate the differences and say, you know, these homes all got this full national plan, and this group of them got the Simulmedia plan, and here was the difference.
Okay. So let's try to turn this around a little bit. So everything we just talked about, everything you just talked about, it sounds pretty utopic, right? It kind of sounds like, wow, I can buy television and I can determine exactly what it's doing for my sales. And it's all wonderful. So for everybody's benefit, what's real and what's really, really hard and what's bullshit? Let's play it out there for this conference.
So what's real is that there is an extraordinary performance in TV advertising, but it's not uniform. I mean, just like all media, there's a lot of the media that doesn't work very hard. What's bullshit is that the television industry is going to be able, either technically or socially, to immediately transform itself to be able to start operating this way. I mean, technically, because you still have to fax your orders in and manage traffic.
Because you're still doing everything manual, right?
Yeah.
Everything you just described.
Yeah, it's
an
automated manual process. Like, these systems do it, but there's a bigger operational overhead than you would like. I'll tell you, and I think this is a world you live in. I can say it because you might not want to say it. The biggest problem is at the client. The biggest problem is that most of the people managing the business at the client are squeezing their agents and their suppliers on a cost per thousand gross basis, and on what incremental cost on top of a full-time equivalent, and they're not truly sort of aligning their interests to try to get to how do you deliver this performance. And that's because that's happening inside their corporations. Procurement has pushed against the media department and the marketing department. And that's our biggest problem. And I'm hoping, like with communities like this, people can sort of come to grips with that and figure out how we can help each other. I think, like you all building like the Magna unit and things like this, you can now follow on the promise you've made about more performance-based compensation, moving things to more automated services. But that's the biggest problem, which is, the electrical engineering is hard, but the social engineering is harder.
Okay. You mentioned, you mentioned that agencies are in this business. We're in this business. I think you've come up as an organization that has definitely, you've had different ways of selling the benefits that you can offer throughout the 5 years. In a world where agency groups are building out operations, IPG is one of them, that can deliver a product that might be similar based on data that they have in-house, based on programmatic buying operations they've created internally. Where does Simulmedia fit into that world? In the past, you have had issues with that, I think. You've been more interested in competing directly with TV networks and not necessarily working directly with agency trading desks. In this world where this is sort of becoming more and more prevalent, how does Simulmedia exist and succeed in a world like that?
So I think I'll start from the client side out, where I think the organizations will be, then I'll tell how Simulmedia will fit in it. So I think that the future of agencies is still critical for clients. I think there's a lot of value in having experts in areas making quantitative and qualitative decisions and managing relationships and gaining scale on pricing. I think that's in working across platforms. I think that's critical. I think we're going to see a transformation in a lot of the way they've been built and the way that they're compensated. I think, so then if I'm looking from inside the agency, I think there's no question that agencies are finding that you can't run a profitable business and give all the best services to your client if you aren't sometimes not just an agent, but also a principal, and also build a margin around a product or service that's been sold. And so I think that's an inevitable reality. And so in Simulmedia's view, we're not agnostic. We're not an agent of clients in that we're not looking for the cheapest possible spot that performs the best. We're trying to maximize the value of inventory. And we're doing that because I believe that in the TV video world, demand will continue to outstrip supply. So,
right, so you're basically saying you're not trying to turn TV into a commodity.
No, and I don't think it will be. I think the fringes may be as they become a little too digital, but I think it won't be a commodity for a bunch of reasons. So when we sell, I mean, our primary sales channel is through an agency, and they're partners of ours in doing that. We try to sell in ways they can fit it in. Now, one of the problems if you have sort of closed loop reporting and data with it is, if the agency is going to mark it up, then it's still whatever that return on investment is, or package it together. One of the problems we're worried about is the one I described earlier, which is you don't want to be packaged up as the slowest moving soldier, the slowest mover. Like, we won't add a row because you're the only ones that will actually sell that way. So I think that we're going to try to do like you normally would do early in the market, work with those agencies that are the smartest and moving the fastest to make that happen. But we fundamentally believe that by certainly the end of next year, every client is going to know the actual effectiveness of every single TV spot they run. Because we're going to publish it for free, if nothing else. I mean, we're not going to, there's no reason to keep this thing hidden. So if everyone's going to know that, it's going to make everyone align with business models that talk about what happened at the purchase level and what happened at the spot level.
Dave Morgan, Simulmedia, blowing up the traditional world. Love it. So we have a few minutes left. I wanted to see if anybody from the audience has any questions for Dave. You can sort of see, raise your hand if you've got one. We got somebody over here. Is that
Please
Gian?
say your name and who you're with as well.
Gian Lombardi with Yumi. Fascinating stuff. I'm just curious how you can validate the integrity of the data sets that you're working with. So where you're getting like offline sales data, how accurate it is, where you're getting some of the other data sets, and how you can validate the accuracy.
So there's a couple things. One, I think the only way this market moves forward is with full transparency into that. So in each case, we're working directly with the client and their agency. It means, it means some of the data sets we work with are companies like Nielsen and TiVo's TRA. Some of the places we're working direct with the credit card companies. Some cases we're working actually with the client's transaction data. And so then you have to work with sort of known third parties where you're going to do a privacy safe match. You have to expose the systems. You also have to work with companies like MSA and some of the auditing companies that are out there so that you know that the client and the agency can come back in and look at it. You may not necessarily publish all of that information to the market because a lot of it's very proprietary, but as part of the transaction, you have to give full transparency. And quite frankly, it's something that we didn't do on the online side for all of my years there, and I thought that was I think that's one of the reasons we have the bot problem we've got today.
Raise your hand if you've got a question. Got a couple minutes left. That's it, one question. All right, going once. Oh, Zaxis. Jessica, what's up? There you go.
How are you handling transparency into the spots that are running?
So we sell on an audience basis, which means we never sell a show or a network, or we only sell national campaigns, or a specific geography or a specific footprint. We permit clients or agencies to exclude certain day parts, a created day part mix excludes certain shows. And then the moment the campaign runs, they're entitled to all post logs. So we actually provide post logs of every single spot where the actual campaign ran together with affidavits.
That's great. Thanks.
Two final questions from me. One is, what do you think do you have a vision for what percentage of the TV world might be bought and sold in this data-specific, audience-focused way?
Yeah, I think, and actually, we just published a white paper with Nielsen on this around some dinners that you participated in. We think about a third of the business in 5 years, so let's say a third of TVs between 25 and 30 billion at that point, will be transacted on an audience-denominated basis, bought, sold, measured, accounted for, at a audience level deeper than the sex, age, gender, historical. So
how could you possibly survive in a pool that small?
I know, that's the, yeah.
So my second question is, we had a session this morning I sat in where Jess Santoro from Vindico said that Vindico has been building gas stations before there were even roads. What's Simulmedia doing?
Yeah, well, not bump gas. You know, I got to think of I got to think of the appropriate analogy for that one. No, that's okay. No, I mean, we're evangelizing out there. I mean, we're trying to get the market to happen. I mean, we've been taking an awful lot of arrows, as you know. I mean, as you say, I mean, I've been publishing actual reach deliveries of TV campaigns now for 2 years. And I've never been yelled at. I was a lawyer earlier in my life, so I know what it's like getting yelled at. The amount I've been yelled at in the last 4 years, you know, it represents like the rest of my life times 10 for basically, you know, sort of throwing a turd in someone's banquet hall. And like, when you're like, why are you doing this to us?
There's the quote. Simulmedia is throwing turds in people's banquet halls. All right, Dave, thanks very much.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it.